But welcome everyone. Appreciate your time today. We have a QR code here if you want to scan that. It'll take you to our website, visforvets.com, where you can essentially follow us on all of our different channels. We kind of built a web page where you can click on to join the Slack, follow us on LinkedIn, Twitter, etc. So definitely feel free to take advantage of that while we're waiting. And let's see, I'll go ahead and move forward. All right, so for today's agenda, we'll just have some brief introductions. We always like to reintroduce ourselves, the leadership team at the Veterans Advocacy Tableau User Group, and then we'll go into our segment called Vet to Viz Stories. And within the Vet to Viz Stories, we'd really like to open it up to all of you to kind of understand what brought you to our group, maybe your journey into getting into data, those kinds of things. So we definitely love to open it up to you all. And then we have, I just noticed a spelling mistake here, but we have our guest speaker, Tim. Thank you, Tim, for joining us today. Really excited to hear from Tim. As you guys know, Tim is a huge content creator within the data space and the Tableau community. So really appreciate you joining us today, Tim. And looking forward to hearing everything that you have to talk about. We did build a job board as well. This is something that updates automatically, and we'll have a QR code there if you're looking for any new opportunities. This is a really helpful job board that takes kind of LinkedIn and USA Jobs and all these disparate like Indeed and brings them all together and makes it really easy for you to search for data-specific jobs that you're interested in finding. We'll also do a call for speakers. If anyone on the call wants to, join us in our next events to, speak or present on certain topics, we'd love to hear from you all. And then we'll have some closing remarks and networking. All right, so just brief introductions, and I'll probably just roll through these. Chris Arriago, he's one of the founders of this group. Chris has a background in data engineering, and it's honestly one of the most talented data engineers I've ever met in my life. He does a lot of segments and stuff on LinkedIn and posts a lot of data engineering challenges and stuff that he's working through. So you can really learn a lot from Chris if you follow him on his social channels. Then we have Tim. Tim is, again, one of the founders of the group. Tim works for the FAA and communications or space communications. Is that correct, Tim?
It's the Office of Commercial Space Transportation.
So much cooler when you say it.
Yeah.
Tim does a lot of really cool stuff there. Tim's really talented, data engineer, Tableau engineer, and comes from kind of a strategic planning background. So brings a lot to our group and really helps us out. My name's Ethan Lang. I work for Playfair Data. I'm the director of analytics engineering there. My background is in data engineering, data visualization, and decision science. So I have a background in statistics. I got my master's in statistics from KU Med and things like that. So if you guys ever want to learn from me, definitely reach out. And then we have Abe. Abe is, one of the cool guys on the team. He does a lot of cool things. But Abe just recently got a job doing consulting, and he's been traveling the world helping people do data visualization and trainings. So Abe definitely brings a lot, and he has a lot to learn or a lot to teach, I should say. So definitely feel free to reach out to any of our leadership team if you guys ever want to network or if you have questions. We're definitely here to help you and to serve you. So feel free to use us as a resource. All right, so this is one of my favorite segments that we like to do in each of our events. It's called the Vet to Viz Stories. And we really want to know, how did you get into this industry? What led you to come into the group today? What challenges have you faced and overcome in your journey? If you're from the military or a veteran, what did that transition look like when you were getting out of the military? And what's your level of experience in data? You don't have to answer each of these. Maybe it's just one of these questions you'd like to speak to, but I would love to open it up to everyone on the call and see if anyone wants to share their own personal story. Let's see, and I believe I have it set up where you could just come off mute. So if anyone wants to come off mute and present, feel free.
Okay. Hi, I'm Stacy Irwin. I'm a military spouse, and I don't know that I would say I'm in this industry yet. I've been a data professional of one kind or another for about 6 or 7 years professionally, and then when I was in grad school, I worked exclusively with data, and that's really where I learned a lot about statistics and how to visualize data for communication, giving presentations and whatnot. My first real exposure to Tableau was at a job after grad school with Comcast, and I just really loved it. I glommed onto it really well. But unfortunately, that was also about 4 years ago, and I hadn't really worked in it every day since then. So I've been trying to get a refresher on my skills, and I came across this group by looking at the Tableau community pages and user groups, picked out a few that I might want to be a part of, and you're the lucky ones.
Fantastic. Well, definitely appreciate it and love to have you. Like I mentioned in the beginning too, our team, we're here to serve you. So if there's anything you have questions on or want to utilize our network to reach out or expand your own network, feel free. Don't hesitate to ask for anything like that.
Sure. I'll be sending invites.
Fantastic. Love it. Anyone else want to open up and talk about themselves for a little minute?
I guess I can go. I'm not going to go on camera because I look a hot mess.
No worries.
So I am prior enlisted United States Navy, a hospital corpsman. I got out in 2006. I got out, started to go back to school for nursing, decided that's not what I wanted to do after being in the military, doing kind of that kind of background. Not much of a patient care kind of person. I got out and then I took a probably good break and then realized that my GI Bill was going to be coming up. So I went back in and got my master's in health informatics. I led to this group because I follow Abe. So I saw that he posted this training, and being new to Tableau and trying to learn what I can, I have bought different Udemy courses and books and stuff like that, but I like to see and do type of thing. And then my transition out of the military, I don't think they ever really focus on how to get back to being a civilian from military. I don't think that's a strong point in the military at all whatsoever. I think it took me a good 8 years to actually learn to not have that structure anymore. And I live in Montana, so I grew up in Arizona though, but it's really different going from a fast-paced environment, very structured, to not having that anymore. And I think that's why I took the big break of getting out of the service, going to school for a couple years, realizing that's not really what I should have done. I was taking like 21 credits in the summer semester and just was not good. Very ambitious for me. So I think I burnt myself out really quickly just because I was so used to just doing what I needed to do. But I've been in data for, I guess I've always been in data, but with my experience and everything I'm using with visualizations and SQL and all that kind of stuff, probably the last 5 years. I graduated with my master's in 2018, and then kind of did stuff for a operating room for the surgical service line at 24 departments, and kind of stemmed off from there with business and all that kind of stuff too. So I'm very appreciative for this course.
Yeah, of course. Like I mentioned, we're definitely here to serve you. So if you have any questions, definitely here to help. And yeah, we've heard a lot of similar stories with transition. It's a lot different in the civilian world coming from the military out. I think everyone kind of has a bumpy path getting started. So you're not alone.
Absolutely. Yeah.
Another thing too, we do host like different challenges and stuff in this group, which is a great opportunity for you to build your own kind of portfolio. And Tableau Public offers a free tool called Tableau Public, that you can download and connect to data, build data visualizations. We worked with an organization in one of our most recent challenges called Hunter 7 Foundation. I don't know if you're familiar with them or not,
I'm
but
not.
they do a lot of cancer research for veterans and advocate for veterans through their research. So it's very health related, very healthcare related. So it might be something that you'd be interested in.
Oh, for sure.
But essentially, they did a survey. They took a survey from nurses in the private healthcare industry, and what they were trying to discover was, are nurses educated enough in the private industry on different issues that veterans face to be able to treat them appropriately and to diagnose them appropriately with kind of preventative care.
Mm-hmm.
So it's really fascinating stuff. What we found is, nurses are very comfortable diagnosing, but they don't necessarily know all the challenges or issues faced by veterans to really drive that preventative care, especially early on. Through Hunter 7's research, what they found is veterans are getting cancer very early, even in their early 30s, in very rare cancers. And that's because of all of the toxic exposure that we were, that we deal with almost every day.
Mm-hmm.
Even the vehicles, the up armored vehicles that we had in, Iraq through the global war on terrorism. If those vehicles get hit or that armor gets cracked, they're actually made with depleted uranium. So you're exposed to radiation if you're pulling security around those vehicles. So there's all kinds of things that veterans get exposed to. So that data, I think you would be very interested in. I can send you a link to what this team built
Sure.
for that challenge. And then, we'd love to work with you to kind of build your own portfolio as well.
That'd be awesome. Thank you.
Yeah, of course. Let's see. I'm going to go ahead and move on, but if anyone else wants to share, definitely reach out and connect with Tim, Abe, Chris, and I. Like I said multiple times now, we're here to serve you and really help you through your journey. We always look at it as, obviously, we like to visualize things, but a line chart, it took us a long time to kind of ramp up and go through our journey. We want to make that transition for you guys a lot sooner, quicker. All right. So for our main event, we have Tim. Tim's come to speak with us. A little bit about Tim. He's the lead analytics consultant at Aimpoint Digital, Tableau visionary, recent Salesforce Golden Hoodie recipient. So congratulations, Tim. That's amazing. LinkedIn learning instructor. And as you all know, he's one of the most, I would say, recognized content creators within the Tableau space. He spends a lot of time putting out content for this entire community. And I know from experience, recording those videos, doing the blogs, speaking at events, it takes a lot of time. So Tim, we really appreciate you taking the time out of your day to come speak to our group. But with that, I'll turn it over to you.
Amazing. Thanks for the very generous introduction as well. It's a privilege to sort of be here and talk to all of you. Just one thing, there you go. I've got screen sharing permission. Perfect. So I do have a deck, but don't worry, it's not boring. It's I promise it's interesting. The goal I have for today is to sort of just give you a no holds bar perspective of this, because I think content creation, if you look at it from the world of let's say YouTube and what you see in sort of mainstream media, I don't think content creators have a good reputation, if that broadly makes sense. I think they're mostly perceived to be people who make these sort of short viral videos that maybe don't add much value to many people's lives. In other cases, they do things that aren't exactly exemplary of society. And so I personally don't use the term that much, because I think I try and sort of differentiate specifically on what I'm trying to do, and that is to help people with Tableau. And so I want to take you through that journey. I want to sort of explain why I do what I do, where it comes from, sort of the effort that goes into it, not because I want to showcase that, but because I think I want to show that from a very small starting point, you can get to quite a big output if you're just persistent and you sort of keep up with it. So hopefully try and encourage some of you to become creators of your own kind as well. So as a day job, I actually work at Aimpoint Digital, a consultancy based in Atlanta. I'm actually based in the UK, so I work remotely for pretty much all the clients that we work with. And so my 9 to 5 is actually that. I'm a full-time consultant working 9 to 5. I have been doing that for the last 10 years. Outside of that, I'm a dad. I'm a father of 2 kids under 2, so I'm just about staying afloat. And on top of that, I'm obviously a husband. I have a dog. I have life. There's so many things that happens. I'm a brother. I'm a son. I'm all these things. And so, fitting content creation in, I think from the outside looking in, you can kind of look at it and think, how do you find all this time? And broadly, it actually starts with, where did the journey begin? So I have a slide. These are all sort of abstract pictures. How did the content journey start? And so to sort of show you this, what I thought I'd do is just go to YouTube, and any of you can do this. Stop this video, and if you go to my videos and you just click on the oldest tab, it shows you the oldest videos I've made. And it was 13 years ago on the same channel, and it was a tutorial about actually print design. So 13 years ago now, it's incredible that's 13 years ago, but wow. 13 years ago, I was learning how to do magazine design and print design on a Windows machine, it looks like at the time. And I was learning this piece of software made by Adobe called Adobe InDesign. And I got myself in a bit of a troublesome situation because I went to university and I told everyone that I knew how to design graphics. And I did know how to do that, except for I only knew how to do it in Photoshop. Someone asked me, hey, can you do this for magazine design? And I was like, yeah, sure. How hard could it be? So I said yes, without really thinking about it. And then later that week, I got home and I actually said, well, how do you do this? And I quickly realized, oh crap, I need to learn new software. I need to learn it quickly because at some point next week, they're probably going to ask me to send them an example. So that weekend, I watched a video on a platform called lynda.com at the time. That's now LinkedIn Learning, which is sort of a full circle story I'll come to later. And I learned a whole range of things about print design. There was one thing I learned that I couldn't find anywhere on the internet. It was how to do this specific technique where you have a large letter at the start of a paragraph. That's called the drop caps. And so I learned it on the lynda.com platform. I couldn't find it anywhere else. And I thought, you know what, I'm gonna democratize this knowledge a little bit. I'm gonna make a video, but I'll make it my own way. I won't copy what was on the lynda.com platform. And so I made the video, uploaded it, and just walked away from it. I didn't realize so many people would find it useful. I think in the first few days, 100 people watched it, and I was pumped. And people were finding it. But back then, 13 years ago, YouTube was common, but it wasn't sort of this thing that you just default go to. And so that was the first video. And you can see I kind of made a video. Then I tried it again with another piece of random software. Django is a CMS. And I slowly realized, this is actually quite fun. I enjoy making these videos and helping other people. And then you can see I made 3 videos, one about typography, one about Django, and then I stopped for the best part of a long while. And the next video I made was about Tableau. And what happened in that gap was life happened, lots of things happened, but I realized something. That initial course on Adobe InDesign actually enabled me, because since that point, what I did is I went on and I designed lots of magazines. I then went on and designed websites. And then I actually built quite a big passion for typography. And I didn't realize until I reflected on it that actually this was all because I was enabled to do so. And I was fortunate enough to get access to lynda.com. And I wondered, wow, if video is going to be more readily available through platforms like YouTube, which it was, then I think there's going to be an incredible opportunity to teach people by showing them how to fix small problems. And so when I started my career in analytics, which is just over 10 years ago, you can see here it says 9 years, but when I started 10 years ago, I learned a few things in Tableau. I figured I was just learning what everyone else was learning, until one day I showed a colleague something that I'd built, and they were like, how did you do that? And I'm like, I just, played around with these layout containers. I arranged them nicely and I spaced it all out. And they were like, well, I've never seen anyone do that. So I was like, okay, cool. I'll upload it onto YouTube as a series. I'll do a 3-part series. And so I literally did that. I recorded them part one and part two, and uploaded it and thought nothing of it, and then disappeared for a long while. And then again, I did another challenge as part of like a Tableau public challenge internally in our company, the Information Lab at the time. I made a video about the Volvo Ocean Race, and then I thought nothing of it. So again, 3 videos, walked away, whatever. And so you can see a trend. Every single time I'm trying something, solving a problem, walking away, not really thinking about the format, not really thinking about the outcomes. And this whole time, I'm not really paying attention to the numbers either. I'm actually just more passionate about sharing the knowledge. And then it's not until I sat down and actually looked at it, I was like, oh wow, actually people are finding this content really useful. Maybe there's something in this. Maybe there's a really powerful way to reach out to people. But at the time, blogs were the most common format. And I just thought, well, blogs work if you're happy to read the content, but I have mild dyslexia. So, reading a lot is not a good way to get information into my brain. I like to see how things are done. So I said, okay, for Tableau version 10, and yes, it is really that old. For Tableau version 10, I'm going to do a series of tips and tricks. And so I just went for it. I just went and made a series of videos covering Tableau version 10. And I did some work sort of leading up to that to kind of try and get some practice. I installed multiple versions, and then we did this one here about hex binning, and then we did the Tableau 10 series, and that worked really, really well. I looked at the new design features, and I was really surprised by the uptake. And then I kind of fell off a cliff, and I thought I'd try and be a vlogger because that was the thing that was in trend at the time. It was so embarrassing. So I did some vlogs of Tableau conference in Las Vegas. No, not in Las Vegas, in Austin, Texas, sorry, in 2016. And that just fell off a cliff, and I just stopped. And so I learned a lot of lessons, and I kind of slowly started to understand, okay, some of these things work, some of these things don't. Really, you need to just focus on the thing that people find valuable. So I sort of started to focus back on charts and little tips and tricks, how to do specific things, how to solve problems, and then you can start to see things start to sort of pick up a little bit. But then I stopped again. There's another sort of false start here. So between this video here, where I'm at conference in Las Vegas a year later, and this next video, there's like a 2-year gap where I did nothing. And it's on this third attempt at sort of starting to make this content that I really realized that the thing that was making me stop and start was actually everything behind the scenes, the production of making the videos and sort of doing all of that. And it just dawned on me, well, if I can go back and learn how to do this sort of technique in magazine design, surely I can go and learn how to edit videos, right? And so that's exactly what I did. I started learning how to edit videos with the software I had at the time, which was Adobe Premiere Pro. Creative Cloud has this monthly subscription, so I sort of subscribed to it for the first month for free and told myself if I can make 3 videos for free, then that's a good signal. I can probably invest in it. And that's what I did. And so that started this sort of more deliberate branded approach and theme about making Tableau videos. So that's sort of how the journey started. It's completely unintentional, lots of false start. And between 13 years ago and 5 years ago, there's a massive chasm of time. So if you're starting content creation today, you probably have like a 5-year head start on me, because it took me 5 years just to actually get into the rhythm of doing it and figuring it out. So that's one piece. And that is a really important story for me, because I think I realized very quickly that if I could just figure out how to package the content in as easy format as I could, that would really, really help get the content out there more frequently. And so I chose Tableau because A, was something I thought I was good at. I'd been using Tableau now for 4 years. I kind of knew my way around it. I worked at the Information Lab, which was actually quite well known in the industry. So I felt like I was in a perfect space to sort of absorb information and figure out better ways of sharing it. And so I chose, let me make videos about something I know something about. And if it helps a few people, perfect. And that was all it really was. I just started the channel, and it sort of went from there. And the thing about the content is I needed to make sure that I didn't sort of fall into the trap where I'd fallen before, where I didn't have some sort of motivation. So you can see that I started basically talking about new features and new releases. and I just persistently talked about them. So as soon as a new version came out, I'd just make the videos. And you can see the thumbnail design here sort of evolving. So I was figuring out how to make templates in PowerPoint. That's where I was making these thumbnails. I was doing it in PowerPoint and exporting them as images. And some of it was awful. And you can see I very quickly started to sort of realize that. Some of these with a more modern design, I've actually gone back and changed them because they're quite well-performing videos and I don't want them to look old. So I've gone back and changed the thumbnails multiple times. But you can kind of see the general theme evolving. I slowly start to improve small things. And where it really took off was this video where I explained Tableau in under 10 minutes. I was absolutely convinced that I'd failed multiple times to explain Tableau to my friends and my family and what it is. So in an attempt to sort of put that right and sort of be unhappy every single time I gave some sort of description, I just sat down for 1 week and I said, I'm going to make a video explaining this, but I'm not going to do it in the way that I would do it. I wouldn't just talk to the camera. I thought it needed an illustrative sort of approach and something more interactive. So I actually animated it, and a lot of people ask me how I did this. And again, it's another example of, well, I did it exactly how you think I would have done it, which is I learned how to draw and animate content in an app called Procreate. So I literally bought a book. I learned how to sketchnote. I started to pay attention to the analytics to see what people found interesting. I realized that animated videos had better retention. I started saying, well, if I'm going to make an animation, it needs to be really good. So let's write a script. And then I got into sort of animation design, which is absolutely crazy because I'm not a creative at all. I'm just sort of curious about the process and doing it better. So I did some really crap storyboards. Don't judge my drawing. And then I tried it out. I tried some small sort of samples, and then I opened up an iPad and I drew these things. I was always insistent on just using what I have. So I didn't sort of go out and buy anything special for this. I just used what I had. If I couldn't have done it, I would have done it with a camera over the table with pen and paper. But it just so happens that I love technology and I did have an iPad. So I used that. I recorded it on my desk on a basic laptop, and we edited it very, very slowly in Adobe Premiere Pro. It took me a week to edit it. It was so painful and slow, but eventually we made the video. And to this day, it's the best performing video on my channel. It's reached nearly 1 million people, which is absolutely crazy. And yeah, I'm super proud of that. And so all in all, it kind of sort of vilified my thought back here when I was sort of trying to piece everything together. I'd actually sort of eventually pieced everything into a format that I think people were enjoying, and I could start to sort of give something valuable. That said, you've all watched TV shows. After a couple of series, you sort of fall out of love for them because you don't like the format, you don't like what they're showing. So I needed to decide what my sort of format was going to be, something easily repeatable and easy to share. So of course it was Tableau, but that's not enough to be a niche on something like YouTube, because if you think about it, if I started a channel and I'd said, I'm going to teach people analytics, it's an incredibly broad term. Every single time someone finds the channel, they're probably thinking, well, what am I going to get from this? And if it's one day it's Tableau, another day it's Power BI, another day it's Alteryx, the fourth day it's Snowflake, the fifth day it's, I don't know, R, the seventh day it's Python. Every time I sort of show you something you're not interested in, you're not likely to come back, and you're definitely not likely to hit subscribe. So by focusing on not just Tableau, but specifically helping people understand new features and get started with Tableau, those are like the two niches that I cover, and that is only what I cover. I don't make tips and tricks videos with 100 different set actions and whatever. If I focused on just that, I think in my opinion, I was going to help the most number of people get into the topic. And from there, they would discover other pieces of content, other channels, and other sort of formats. And I think that sort of played out over time. Since I started on YouTube, there's definitely been an increase in other people also making content on YouTube, not because I started it, but because they have different ideas and different takes of how to do the same thing. And their takes on those things are much better. I think of Donabel Santos and the way she teaches something like LODs. I could never come close to that. I think of Andy Kriebel and his experience over the years with tips and tricks. I could never come close to sort of the articulate way that he brings that together. So really understanding what I was good at bringing new people into the space and really serving them with good and clear explanations so they can help themselves find the resources they need to. A kind of question that sat in the back of my mind is, if you're going to teach level of details to someone, how would they know to search level of details in Google, right? They have to get deep enough into the topic to actually understand that's something they need to know, to then be able to search for it. And so that was my niche and that was my format. So if I go back to sort of my videos, I think it's very easy to see what I do. I do new releases. Every time there's a new feature, I'll talk about it and we'll sort of do videos. And then occasionally I repeated this sort of animated style. I did some other videos around conferences, but I don't sort of veer too much from that. And I then started sort of looking at themes, and I said, right, I'm going to attack every single function in the product. And so I started every 2 days, I'd make a video about a function, and those have become some of the most watched videos. Not because people go to it to watch it, they search on Google and then the video comes up, and that's how they find it. And that's how I sort of plug the quiet periods in between releases. So when there's a bit of quiet time in between a release, I'll sort of go out and fill the content, and the rest is sort of history. I've just been doing it, and I've kept on doing it. And the thing that you probably don't easily see is that I've improved the amount of time it takes to make the content in behind the scenes. So I've just kept on doing this, and behind the scenes it's taking me less and less time to sort of make the videos. And so when we think about what content people are watching, the best way to show you this is to go into sort of the YouTube backend, as it were. So every YouTuber or every content creator who has any sort of following on YouTube gets landed in something called YouTube Studio. Actually, every user on YouTube has this, but if you haven't shared a video, there's nothing here for you to see. So it just looks like you're lost somewhere on the internet. But you land on this page, and it's quite brutal, actually, because it's incredibly rich with data. And as a data professional, you can kind of find yourself just sitting here like paying too much attention to all the detail. But the metric every YouTuber hates is knowing how badly your last video did versus your previous 10 videos. So typically what you want to get here is a high score, a 1 out of 10 or a 2 out of 10. But to get an 8 out of 10 means it's the least interesting video out of the last 10 videos. But I don't sort of pay attention to this, because I make videos to fill a gap of knowledge, or to make a guide that I know will come up in people's searches in the future. And so I just make them and I just leave them there. And then over time, they sort of do their thing and they slowly grow. And so if I go to content, if I go to dashboard, and we go to analytics, you can kind of see this is like a 28-day view. If I was to do lifetime, which is basically when I started the channel, there's two funny stories about this. If I just give it a second to load, from a data perspective, you actually get to see the stops and starts, the multiple stops and starts that I had over time. I should have preloaded this, but it will load fairly quickly. We'll just give it a bit of time. And you'll see that I've been on YouTube and had no one watching videos longer than I have been on YouTube and had someone watching videos. Like, the majority of my time on YouTube has been spent with nobody watching my content, up until I actually got to a point where I got a better rhythm. And that sort of proves that just to make content about anything, you just need to be persistent. You need to have a good level of discipline, actually, which I'm sure veterans sort of know a lot about. And I think it's very hard. There's the graph. So for a long time, no one was watching anything whatsoever. And, eventually things just happened, right? Something happens here and boom. Okay. That's when I figured out how to be a little bit more persistent about it. And sort of, you can just see this sort of explode, and the peaks and troughs vary, but it is what it is. And the reason I came here was to show you sort of what are people watching. So again, it's, what is Tableau? And these videos that I uploaded that have nothing to do with Tableau, but actually one of the toughest things you can do is make a video in the same year that's able to outperform things that have been up there for a long time. When you get to that level, I think you know how to make content that people enjoy. So at the beginning of the year, I made a Tableau desktop crash course. I got fed up of people asking me for courses on paid platforms like Udemy and whatever. And I was like, look, I've literally made 500 videos nearly. everything is out there. You just need to search for it when you need it. And so I said, okay, fine, I'll make a video on a crash course. We'll sit here for 4 hours, which is, I think the video is 3 hours, but I sat for a long time and recorded that. And so this is sort of the most watched content. And if I select see more, then you'll get like a top list. And so to summarize, what do people watch? They watch the introduction to Tableau, they watch the crash courses, and then they watch the things you think most people would watch. So how do I do layout containers? How do I use this function, right? These are just the same old things. How do I learn Tableau? And they're not sort of rocket science questions. You could probably go into ChatGPT today and ask it, what are the 50 most asked questions about Tableau? And it would be many of these same questions. But over time, they just find their audience. None of these performed incredibly well when they were launched, but they just find their audience. I can give you an example of this. If I go to if I go back one and I go to this video, Tableau Desktop Crash Course, a lot of videos on YouTube do this, where they just sort of tick, 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 tick. And then at about day 100 or 94, the YouTube algorithm has finally figured out who should be watching it. Here, it took a bit longer. It kind of went up till here, and then you can see there's a slight inflection there. And at that point, YouTube's algorithm has done a couple of things. It's asked people what they think of the video. You sometimes get surveys on YouTube. Those surveys correlate to what YouTube thinks of the video. So YouTube doesn't actually care about what you answer when you respond to that question. What they're doing with those questions is checking whether their algorithm has correctly matched the user to the video. And it's using a model to do that. And you're kind of feeding that model. And once that's done, then you can see the videos just now start to get like a very gradual straight line, because essentially YouTube knows, oh, if this kind of person comes online and they're looking for this thing for Tableau, I know that Tim has a video that solves the problem. And so at least for the next 4 years, this video will just continue to do this and will continue to help people. And you get really detailed metrics about, when people drop in, when people drop off, what sections people watch. So you can live in here and sort of get swamped with data and information. It's pretty detailed. So it's pretty wild. And something that I find really funny is that behind the scenes, it's an absolute mess. Like I think when you see the videos and you see everything nicely polished, like you think the video kind of represents sort of the reality that the person lives in. In real terms, it's not. I'm just on my desk. I started out with a phone and a laptop, and then eventually there was an inflection point during COVID, actually. So during COVID, YouTube decided, well, everyone was at home and suddenly everyone was watching YouTube. And so YouTube couldn't afford to keep YouTube running. So what they said is, right, we're going to change the rules here and put ads on every single video, regardless of whether or not you've approved them. So I actually switched on ads on my channel for the first time. I'd never switched it on up until 2020, the end of 2020. So October 2020 is when I enabled ad revenue for the channel, because ultimately YouTube was going to create the revenue anyway and take it for themselves if I didn't enable it. And so I said to myself, right, I'm going to enable it, and anything I get, I'm going to put it back into the channel. And from a business perspective as well, actually, if I didn't do that, I'm actually liable to tax. And this is just something that I do for fun. So by setting up a business and sort of putting it in that, it meant that I could just keep that sort of over there. I don't have to pay tax on it because there's no profit being made. It's just a sort of self-running business. And eventually, I was able to sort of build a setup and make my process easier and easier and easier, to the point where, I can very quickly record a piece of content and sort of get to it. And ultimately, behind the scenes, I'm just working at my desk with a camera. It can be any camera. It doesn't have to be a nice camera. But wherever I can sort of improve the standard for people, I try and do that. And ultimately, it kind of gets to the point, if I actually go back to the analytics. If you've got questions, I'll look at that in a second. So I started the channel when I'll let's just, for argument's sake, let's say I actually properly started the channel in 2019. Obviously, I started it way back here in 2010. But yes, 2020 is really when I actually started making an effort. So if you take 2020 up until today, we're in 23, over 3 years. You can essentially just look at this revenue number. This is essentially what YouTube has paid me from the ad revenue. Now, YouTube takes, I think, 40%. So this is 60% of the total revenue generated from videos. and I've essentially put that all back into a setup. So hopefully you'll see the videos. I have good sound quality. That's not a problem anymore. I have a good camera. I have a decent laptop. I actually have the necessary gear to edit videos professionally. And I've kind of gotten to a problem now where I'm now at the point where I need to actually try and grow the YouTube channel a little bit more to justify doing something completely wild, which I'll come to towards the end. So I'm kind of in between posts at the moment, but I'll explain that towards the end. So it's just a flywheel. Once you start and you just keep going, you just eventually find your audience, and eventually, people who enjoy it will sort of come to you. And it's kind of funny because when you do all of that, it turns out you run a media company essentially. And I was talking to a friend of mine who runs a couple of businesses, and they work with a media company, and they sat me down, and I didn't really realize this until they sat me down. I said, "Hey, what do you do for your YouTube channel?" And I explained all the things I do and how it all works. And they're like, "Well, yeah, you run a media company." And I was like, "What do you mean?" I was like, "Well, you make the content, you produce it, you write it, narrate it, script it, all of that stuff. You work with obviously YouTube, but you also work with other people to sort of make the content happen. It's just a media creation company. That's all it is." So I was like, "Okay, cool. That is what it is." But I didn't set out for it to be like that. It's not like back here when I sort of started on the journey, that's what I planned. I have no interest or desire. Like I said, I'm a dad, consultant. I have real work to do on a day-to-day basis. So that's sort of a really sort of interesting outcome, and I'll come back to this a little later because it does pose some challenges to how I look at things now, which I'll come to. So as conscious of time, I want to make sure I get to the end of this. How does everything work? So I thought I'd just sort of minimize the screen and just show you the process, if that makes sense. So I've got everything open so you can kind of get to it. So when I'm planning content, one of the things I do is I plan it in Notion. I think you've all heard of Notion. It's a tool for organizing teams and so on and so forth. If I bring up a video, so this is the most recent video that I created. If I just zoom out, this is a sort of standard edit. And I know this looks intimidating, but honest to God, when I started, I had no clue what any of this was. I taught myself just on YouTube. I literally just went on YouTube and I said, "Hey, how do I use this to do this?" And I just slowly search for new things. And you just bring the content together. You sort of lay it out onto the canvas and you just work with it. So this is an example of a video edit. You can kind of edit it and work through it. It's super, super simple. When I'm doing things like thumbnails, this is always the most fun thing to show people, because I think you'll see a thumbnail on YouTube and you'll think, "Oh, cool, nice thumbnail." They probably did it in Photoshop. And actually, the process is a little bit more involved, because I do not have time every time I need a thumbnail to sit, take a photo, think of the title, come up with all the images. And so if I zoom out, I actually have this like mega photo board with hundreds of photos that I took using emojis as ideas of how to pose. And then I sort of just grab a version of Tim and I drop it onto one of many different template thumbnails. You've probably seen some of these get used. I've cut out pretty much everyone that is anyone from Tableau executive team, from lots of different places. So it's a little bit wild, frankly speaking, but this is how I can create a thumbnail in 2 minutes and get on with my day, right? So that's why it's there. So if I just show you very quickly, we're going to make a thumbnail right now. So we'll make a thumbnail just for Biz for Vets, and then I'll pretty much close. So we'll take this version of Tim, we'll put him on the canvas, we'll take that title and we'll just copy it in. So there we go. And then we'll zoom in, and then this is just editable text. So we'll say, I just keep clicking in here, we'll say, okay, Tim presented for the vets. Cool. And I'll just sort of do that. I'll change that border. And then, yeah, that's pretty much it. I just probably need a graphic. I'll probably think of something pertinent, go find something new. I position this. Sometimes I play around with this. So I'll say, "Oh, make sure my hand is actually floating over the the sign, these sort of subtle things that make it look like it's a bit more realistic than life. And there you go, that's a thumbnail. And then we just hit export and boom, I can sort of carry on with my day and not spend too much time thinking about it. So all of these different processes sort of come together to sort of enable a lot of different things. So if I just, oops, let me just bring back the other tab. Hold on, where did it go? Where has it gone? There we go. There we go. I don't know where it disappeared. So everything is pretty neatly organized. Everything's pretty easy to sort of bring together. It has actually created opportunities, because what ended up happening is I made some videos about Tableau. I did some animated videos, and Tableau saw those videos and thought, that animated style actually works pretty well. Thanks for figuring out how that works. Would you be willing to help us use that format for some other content they were thinking of? So I ended up, during COVID, working on a series of videos which were animated in the same style as my animated video about COVID and the return to work and how Tableau could help with that initiative. Some of that work then got taken and turned into a Trailblazer course. So if you go and look at the data ethics and equity, which was done by there's an organization that Tableau have teamed up with to sort of come up with those principles. There's actually a trailhead which uses those same graphics and has been sort of created. And then as of the last 2 years, LinkedIn reached out and they said, hey, you seem to make content about Tableau very well. Would you be interested in sort of making content for us? And at that point, I was like, okay, this has turned very serious now, because when you're making content for a company like LinkedIn, things are very different. You're on a contract. There's a whole lot of complexity with how they reward you and how they pay you. And so what I actually realized is, this is another opportunity for me to jump the media company, as it were, to the next level. So I started working with LinkedIn 2 years ago. I've made 2 courses with them. And where that's sort of going now is that those 2 courses, I think, will enable the YouTube channel to sort of take a huge leap middle of next year. So by huge leap, I mean hiring an editor finally, which means I don't have to edit and do everything. And then secondly, hiring a content producer. So essentially, I actually work with one at the moment. We're going through sort of a trial period, so I can't name who they are, but they're familiar in the community. And their job is to help frame content, and my job is to help make that content come to life. So they're super passionate about these tutorials and how to make them work. My job is to sort of really sort of educate people and make sure that they come out. So essentially building out the components of a media company slowly, maybe to get to the point where I can do this full time. That would be incredible. Don't tell my boss. But the idea is to sort of just keep building that out. And that's what this sort of final slide is. I realized that I've got an opportunity over the next maybe 2 to 3 years. I'm not sort of trying to do it at breakneck pace like some content creators. If I just keep on sort of taking away, we bring in a couple of new technologies. Snowflake is something I'm super passionate about. DBT and data engineering are things that I'll get to at some point in the future. When I start to sort of bring those online and we start to cover some of the changes that are going to happen in the Tableau world over the next few years as well, I think we have an opportunity to not just reach tens of thousands of people, but hundreds of thousands, maybe even millions over the next 5 years. And so that's sort of my new mission. I want to try and build a media company that will teach the world Tableau, always keeping the content free and accessible on YouTube. That's super important. I always recommend people use an ad blocker if they don't want to see the ads, because YouTube can't really stop you, although they're trying to do a few things, but they haven't sort of switched that on in full. And yeah, sort of balancing that interaction with paid opportunities to help accelerate what's going on here, and really just sort of fueling sort of my passion. The things I actually enjoy doing are making the videos and helping people learn new things and getting feedback from people to say, hey, you didn't do that right, or you could have done that better. And if that could be my full-time job, that would be incredible. And so some closing thoughts. It is, in the world we live in today, if I just sort of rewind, if I tried this 10 years ago, like I did, I tried this 13 years ago, actually, maybe I tried a little bit too early, and that's why it was hard. The laptop I use today edits videos so easily. The laptop I had 13 years ago, no chance. And even if I had the money, it wouldn't have made sense to buy a computer powerful enough to edit the videos I make today, if that makes sense. 13 years ago, if I needed a hard drive that could store all the footage I've recorded, impossible to find. It doesn't exist. Just last week, I moved 20 terabytes of data off one hard drive to another one. And that was possible because for whatever reason, I decided when I started to always record in 4K and keep all the recordings, even if I never use them. So I have the ability to go back and edit all of that stuff. Only made possible because storage is nowadays very cheap, and you can find that kind of storage, for a couple of $100 rather than tens of thousands, which is what it was many years ago. So technology is also making things very accessible. With a phone and a laptop today, I think you could achieve what I achieve today without very little difference. You just need to know the tips and tricks, and there are tons of YouTube channels that sort of show you that. So if I can encourage you all to think of a niche that you're really, really good at, you might think there's not many people in the world that are interested in that, but actually, you'll be surprised. The internet has allowed many people with niches to sort of come together and find each other in incredible ways. And I think you can do that. I have 60,000 subscribers. I've probably only ever met a few hundred of them. And that's sort of the opportunity that the internet sort of has. So I'll stop there. I'm sure there's questions. I've rambled a ton and I haven't looked at the chat. So we can go through some of that in more detail now.
That was amazing. Thank you so much, Tim, for presenting that. I have several questions, and then I'll open it up to the rest of the folks. I was curious, like your own process, and when you started learning on your own, it sounded like, you had to learn all these things: editing, animation, producing. Like, how did you balance like learning those new skills and picking up on that stuff with your own kind of personal and work life?
Yeah. So the thing about it is, if I go back to where is it? Over here, and it tells you how many videos. So you've 448 videos, and the way I try and explain this to people is, if you think, if in each video I solve one problem, these are 448 problems I no longer have, right? So the first video, I just figured out how to hit record and talk. The audio was awful, right? I think if you go and watch that video, I've never really deleted any video. If you go and watch some of these videos, the audio is absolutely diabolical. I would not wish it upon anyone. But somehow 71,000 people in some of these made it through, probably because the content was valuable. So that taught me, okay, even though you got the audio wrong, people really like the content. So focus on improving the production and don't worry about the content. And then eventually I fixed that and it was no longer a challenge. You move on to the next thing. And if in each video you just fix one thing, after 50 videos, you've pretty much solved everything. And then everything after that is just about improving the process. And every time you think, oh, I don't have time for this, just ask yourself, is there something I can do that could improve this? And that's exactly what I did. Sometimes it requires technology to kind of get through that breakthrough. Right now, AI is doing incredible things for video. I'm not even joking. I think I could take some of these really bad videos and just improve them tenfold with AI tools that are free to use on the internet. So now there couldn't be a better time to get into content. And it doesn't have to be video. It could be audio. It could be the written form. It could be something more interactive. Don't get too wedded to the format. Just try and think of, newsletters are really big at the moment. Just try and think, the person who's consuming this, what format would they really like to consume it in? And then build around that format and package around that format. Every single video I've made here could easily be a blog, and I could probably get AI to go and write them. So actually some scarily good blog posts that it's written based off my videos. I actually tried that, which is pretty crazy.
That's hilarious.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I think you're validating some thoughts I've had. I've always heard this idea. They say it's 62 miles from Earth to space. And right. I love space, so I've always really resonated with this. But 62 miles from Earth to space, they say it takes about 62 times to do something to really make a difference and start seeing the impact.
Yeah.
I feel like your story really validates that for me. It took you a long time and a lot of content to really start seeing all that go up. That kind of segues into my next question.
Yeah.
As you were getting started, how did you keep the motivation to just keep putting out content, even if it was, not taking off as much as you would?
Yeah. I mean, the most brutal way to sort of see the motivation of a YouTuber is just to look at how often they post and how little they post. And a motivated YouTuber is posting once, maybe multiple times a week. A YouTuber who's maybe burning out a little bit will have like 2-week gaps between videos. So that's exactly where I am actually at the moment. I go through sort of peaks and troughs of burnout and having a rest, and I just respect that this is not my full-time job, right?
Mm-hmm.
For some content creators, it is their full-time job, so the dynamic is a little bit maybe unhealthy, but it's not my full-time job. I'm a dad first, then a husband, then a professional, and then a brother, then a son, then a content creator. That's literally the hierarchy of like everything. And so for the last 2 weeks, I've just had 101 things happening. I have
Mhm.
17 videos that I've recorded. I just haven't had time to edit them. So when I get a chance, I'll just edit them. I'll just open up DaVinci Resolve. I'll start editing and I'll just knock it out in half an hour. But I'm not going to put myself under pressure to make the content. So you do see these peaks and troughs. YouTube's pretty brutal about it, but that's essentially how I go about it. You can kind of see these. This is a good example of a gap, right? So you can just see a long gap. It's not because I haven't got ideas. It's just because I've just been busy. You kind of naturally see them. I don't have a sort of a set cadence. I don't think. Yeah, you can kind of see. Look at this one. I went the best part from October to like January with no videos. That's brutal. So yeah.
No, that's fair.
Yeah.
No, that's fair. Yeah, I've tried to do stuff on my own as well. I started like an initiative posting like weekly Tableau tips.
Yeah.
And oh my gosh, you talk about brutal, like putting it all together and then trying to like schedule the posts. It was just without getting ahead of it, it just really overwhelms you. But
I will say I've really valued automation a lot more. I use a tool called Zapier to sort of do a lot of the lifting, heavy lifting. So as soon as a video goes live, it automatically pushes the video and the content to my blog, and it will automatically create a task in my to-do list to share a certain media posts. And when I open that app, it just says, "Oh, you haven't shared that thing from 2 days ago on social media." Oh yeah, sure, I should probably do that. These are just nudges, right? They're not going to do the work for you. You still need to sort of curate the post and make sure it works. But yeah, just any automation you can do. If you do something 3 times, figure out how to automate it so you don't have to do it again, because then it's worth it, right?
That's fair.
Yeah.
And with AI, man, I mean, you probably write the post for me.
Yeah. So there's a little bit of an interesting note here. All my videos, I've transcribed them. All my videos, I've had the video. As of January of this year, AI came into play. And so for the first time, I can actually transcribe a video with 99% accuracy. So subtitles are available from day one. What that ultimately means is people in other countries who see the captions get more accurate captions on day one compared to before. And I saw a little bump in consumption of content because of that. Now, on top of that, there are tools today that can take your voice and allow you to basically speak other languages, but with your tone of voice and your sound. And so YouTube is actually working on a couple of features to enable content recorded in English to be using AI to be sort of translated and have the video go as far as change your lip movements to match the intonations and sort of dialect of that language. I don't think it will work well because, of course, sentences aren't made in the same way in every languages. So if you just take an English translation and you try and translate it to, let's say, I don't know, Spanish, the way you build a sentence in Spanish and the way something is interesting culturally is entirely different. But it could open up a world of sort of accessibility where people sort of do understand English at a basic level, but maybe don't understand it that well. And just having something to bridge the gap would be sort of super handy. But it's wild what's going on at the moment. I think next year you'll see some really crazy things on YouTube for sure. Yeah.
Man, that's amazing. Kind of scary at the same time.
It is.
It is amazing. A good segue. My last question. I was curious when you're speaking about the algorithm and like how it takes time to kind of pick up.
Yeah.
It reminded me a lot of, even Google, like when I post a blog, it has that same kind of ramp up period before we really start seeing like views. Yeah. I was curious, like, is there any tactics or techniques that you can apply within YouTube to kind of help the algorithm move forward? Like with Google, it's like SEO optimization and stuff like that, with keywords.
So, YouTube, again, is really data rich and it tells you about your audience. So, at a basic level, if I just go for the last year, I can see the split between returning versus new subscribers. And I can kind of use this as a starting point to kind of say, okay, most people who watch my videos come online around 12 p.m. in the UK. So there's no point posting a video at 7 in the morning because no one's online to click on it. So post it right about 1 o'clock, right as people are coming online. So they see, oh, Tim has just posted a video, right?
Mm.
And so if they see, oh, Tim's posted a video in the last 2 hours, they're more likely to watch it rather than something that says Tim posted a video yesterday and it already feels like yesterday's news, right? So those are sort of small tactics. The other thing is with contents and descriptions, YouTube is constantly changing the algorithm to sort of be a little bit smarter. And so I spend a lot of time setting up defaults. So this whole sort of all of this copy is actually a lot of it is the same in every single post. And YouTube uses that to sort of enhance the content and sort of figure everything out. They've also started actually using the transcriptions of the video to better do SEO on the videos. And so there is a little bit of that that's going on, but you don't have much visibility of that. So at a very basic level, the best way I sort of think to explain it to people is, well, the typical user is going to go onto the homepage and this is what they see. So if I switch out of my Tableau Tim profile, this is what they're going to see. Okay. And so you're competing with this and it's an absolute, like, it's so competitive. I mean, everything here is more interesting than Tableau, 100%, right? Like everything under the sun is on this page. And so how on earth do you compete with that? And it's impossible. So you really have to sort of put it in the context of that and just understand the only way people are going to find you, at least with Tableau, is actually through Google. So if I go to google.com and say, okay, someone's stuck and they want to understand, like, what is Tableau, right? That's a basic question. And they hit that. And you'll see, oh, okay, there's a blog post from Tableau. These are all paid ads insertion, by the way, so sponsored. Okay, these are the first actual hits. So you've got videos. Oh, there's my video. And so if I click on that video, I can actually show you that if I click on this, YouTube has gone and taken the chapters and kind of broken it down. And I add those chapters into every single video. And so it's using that to improve that. So I always say reverse engineer or something. So let's say you were going to do a blog post on set actions. How to use set actions in Tableau. Okay. And I hit enter. And if I scroll down, it shows you this. People also ask, what is an action for sets on Tableau? How do I use actions in Tableau? And so if you expand one of these, Google kind of thinks, oh, interesting. Okay, you're kind of interested in this topic. And it kind of gives you a little bit more context each time as you expand these. And you can kind of also use this to better build your content towards that sort of piece of content. So come up with the blog post, then find out what people are searching to find the blog post, then write the blog post. I know it sounds weird to write the blog post to match the SEO, but you'll generally write more interesting content if you actually answer the things that people are looking for rather than things you think are interesting. And then the end result is that, guess what? Google finds your content and shares it out even faster. So actually reverse engineer that process. And that's what people do on YouTube. They actually, I don't, but most people start with a thumbnail, then they go to the title, then they write the script and the outline, then they actually record the video, which is broken to me, but it does work for lots of content creators. So yeah.
Right on. Oh,
yeah.
It's interesting. No, I love that. Appreciate it. Well, sorry to take up the questionnaire. Does anyone else have any questions on the line?
I will say something about Camtasia. I think Camtasia is a curse. Camtasia is worse than DaVinci Resolve free version. Like whenever anyone says Camtasia, I'm just like, okay, please put it down. Just spend 2 hours on a crash course in DaVinci Resolve. DaVinci Resolve has a free version, and you'll find that is demonstrably better than Camtasia. I don't know how they get away with charging for Camtasia. It's so frustrating.
I got it super cheap.
But it's not good. Compared to free, though, that's a problem. There's actually free editing tools that are better than Camtasia. The thing they're good at is marketing to like people who don't want to be intimidated by video. And the problem is, as soon as you get into the deep stuff in Camtasia, you realize you actually want that feature set. You actually want to be able to do more interesting things. So I started with Camtasia. If I go right back to these, I think these first 6 videos were in Camtasia. And then I stopped. I was like, no, this is punishing. It was in my first 5 videos, I ruled out Camtasia forever, and I started using Premiere Pro. And yes, I know those tools look like more expensive, but actually, if you think about the time it takes you to edit, it takes me 10 times longer than the video to edit and produce the video. So if I'm spending 10 times longer in the tool, then actually my time is worth so much more than the small subscription fee you're going to pay to kind of do the job better. I appreciate, budgets and stuff look different, but DaVinci Resolve has a free version. It's just called DaVinci Resolve, not the studio version, just DaVinci Resolve. Has 95% of the stuff in the paid version. The things it doesn't have, you never need. So it's perfect for this. It's used to make movies in the cinema, basically. That's for an extra $200 once, you can get what they use to make sort of cinema grade content with. But I'm not saying you need to sort of use something that powerful. It's just so much better. So yeah, I saw Camtasia in the comments and I was like, oh, I have to deal with that.
I mean, it's a great starter tool.
Great. Yeah.
Aspect of like learning how to do different things.
Correct.
But it does have a lot of limitations to it. I can say that.
Yeah. Yeah.
But I'm always trying to learn something new, and it really excites me to learn new stuff.
Yeah.
So I will check out DaVinci, but if I don't like it, I'm going to tell you about it.
Yeah, absolutely. Reach out to me. If you don't like it, we'll arrange a call and I'll solve whatever problem you're having.
Perfect.
Stop sharing.
All right, let me see. I'm going to go ahead and reshare the PowerPoint deck here.
Well, hey, Tim, real quick. When did you come up with the Tableau Tim name? Because I feel like I was looking for a name for the data fam, and you stole it like right before I did. And I could have derailed your entire online identity.
So the funny thing about this is this exact situation is how the name came up. There were 2 Tims in the context. I was working for a client and there were 2 Tims. The Tim that was already working at the client was called just Tim. And so they needed another name for me because I obviously wasn't important enough. So they just called me Tableau Tim. And I was like, that does sound kind of cool. So that's what I use. That's all it is. That's where it came from.
I don't know if you saw my LinkedIn post, but I said that at work, I was like one of the only people in the FAA to use Tableau at the time.
Right.
So I was being called Tableau Tim. I was like, oh, that's a great name. And I'm joining I went to a conference in 2016 and I'm like, oh, let me look at a name. It's like, how about Tableau Tim? I was like, who is this guy? And at the time, I don't think it was back in 2016, but like your content was not as
nowhere near,
now.
Yeah, you should have
like,
yeah,
and I could have been presenting today. Jeez,
anyway. You could have been, yeah. You can be.
You deserve the name more than I do, 100%.
We can all share it. It's a community name.
I'll be Tableau Timothy or something like that. Anyway.
Well, Tim, I really appreciate, again, like I said, I know your time is extremely valuable. So with that said, we always like to thank our speakers with presenting them with a military challenge coin.
Oh, amazing.
This is kind of a unique thing that the military does where we have a challenge coin. It has a lot of history, means a lot to veterans and active duty personnel all over the world. So we have one made and we're going to send it to you. So I'll be reaching out, getting your address and sending that over your way. Good
stuff. In future videos, it'll be right there. Okay.
Thank you so much. That's awesome.
It'll be on the wall so everyone can see it. So
that's awesome.
Put it there. Yeah. Good work.
Just a few closing remarks. This is our job board. Feel free to scan that QR code. This is something that Chris Arriago built. Like I said, he's a wizard with data engineering. He's actually consolidated all of these job boards into one reporting tool, essentially. That kind of combs out everything, and it's really focused in on jobs with data, from data engineering to visualization to data entry, analysts, the whole thing. So really cool if you guys want to check that out. We're also calling for speakers. So if anyone is interested in ever speaking at the events or presenting something, definitely reach out, let me know. We'll create an event and communicate together and get that going. But again, thank you so much, everyone, for joining today. Thank you, Tim, like I said, I know your time's valuable, so thank you so much. It was an amazing presentation. I learned a lot personally, so thank you so much.
Absolute pleasure. Just reach out if anyone's got any questions. I'm always responsive on the chat. I think Ethan will tell you that. It might take me a while, but I'll get there eventually.
Perfect. No, thank you so much. Appreciate that. I also saw a couple things in the chat real quick. We'll chat on while we're together. Stacy, just to answer your question, we would love to do something, some sort of visualization for mill spouses. We're actually working on something right now. It's still in the works, but it's looking at kind of reservists and how they're affected by certain benefits within different organizations. So this spans way more beyond, just active duty or veterans, reserve, National Guard, mill spouse, any advocacy organizations. We're open to any ideas and creating visuals to bring awareness to those causes.
Yeah, my husband is Air Guard.
Then the challenges that they face, especially with benefits in their their own corporate life, and then if they ever get deployed, it's can sometimes turn a whole household upside down. Obviously, it does almost every time. So, any other questions or comments? I'll open it up to any questions or networking. All right. Well, thanks again, everyone. Appreciate it. And definitely reach out and connect with us. Thank you so much. Thanks for joining.
Thanks, everyone.
Take care.
Cheers. Take care.
Thank y'all. Thanks for organizing.